One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's second broadcast. That's right, I'm doing two back-to-back. One from 10 to midnight and the other one from midnight to 2 a.m. here live on Orion. It is now December 20th. It was the 19th. Now it is December 20th, one day before the end of the world, and I will be broadcasting live tomorrow night in my normal time slot, 10 p.m. To midnight. So the last 2 hours of the end of the world, you get to hang out with me. So if you want to spend your last 2 hours in the supposed end of the world, then tune in tomorrow. And no, I don't think that it is the end of the world. Anyway, I want to move on to a few different topics, actually two of them in particular. One of them I'm going to spend a large portion of time discussing tonight, actually. And they're both the same thing. I want to cover some of the misinformation or disinformation, whatever you want to call it, that's floating around still out there about the Connecticut school shooting. But I really want to focus on the appeal to emotion that the mainstream media is going on. And I want to show you facts, because I know there's a lot of people out there that they're well-meaning people and they would probably never give up their guns under any other circumstances, but there are Americans that are giving up their guns. They're lining up, to trade their guns in for money. And of course, the news media, I'm sure, is amping it up and lying with convenient people. Yeah, I'm a gun owner, but I figure after this, I'm going to be the responsible American and do the responsible thing and turn my guns in. And now you got all these politicians, Sheila Jackson Lee, turn your guns in, be a responsible American. And there's people that will do it. They'll say, oh, I don't need my gun. One guy said he was afraid to keep it in his house, after he didn't use them anyway, so why have them? And that's great, because I'm sure there's a criminal out there that's watching and going, I know that guy. And then they're going to see him in a store and they're going to follow him home and they know that he's not armed. I mean, the only thing disarmament does is in total gun control and total gun bans. The only thing they do is they let the criminals know without a shadow of a doubt that now there's a huge pool to fish from of victims, because, hey, they can't do anything. They are now powerless. So that being said, I want to cover, before I get into the gun control rants, and by the way, I'm also going to play some clips from Piers Morgan, and I'm going to have to interview him because Piers he's using logical fallacies, and I have to I want to play a little bit of this audio from him versus Larry Pratt. Larry Pratt spanks him. I mean, if you understand an actual really logical argument, Larry Pratt from Gun Owners of America, he stays very calm and complacent, and he schools Piers Morgan, and I'm sure Piers Morgan won't see it that way. I'm sure there's libtards out there that'll say, "Oh yeah, Piers was, he took Larry Pratt on, and he did." I mean, I'm not saying that Piers wasn't all over him. He was. Piers, was on Larry Pratt like, flies on crap. But what do you expect? Piers Morgan, the whole time, he's talking to him and he's talking to other people he has on that are for your Second Amendment rights, right? And against his just insane rhetoric, by the way. It's all appeal to emotion with him. And then when you don't buy into it, because the idea for someone that comes at you like that, Piers is an experienced argument maker, whatever you want to call him. I don't want to call him a newsman because he's not a newsman. He knows what he's doing, okay? What he's trying to do is bait Larry Pratt into saying, starting to talk crap and get on a side argument and then get bogged down, runs out the time, and it makes Larry it allows Piers to frame how he can what kind of light he can shed on the person he's interviewing that's pro-gun. And it's not just because it was Larry Pratt. I mean, it was because the guy was pro-gun. If Larry Pratt came on and said, "Yeah, I think that we've changed our stance and we should get rid of everything," I mean, Piers Morgan would have been giving him tea and probably offering him oral copulation right there. Okay, so I mean, let's just face the facts. It is what it is. So, and Piers is a talking head. Who knows? He probably believes this crap. I'm also going to show you evidence that Piers Morgan is lying. Okay, and if you don't understand what I'm talking about with that, you will see. Piers Morgan is lying to you when he says that gun bans in the UK made crime go down. He lied right on CNN, and of course he's expecting the people to buy into this because right now people are so emotionally upset because of what happened. These people that do this, and I'm not saying because I'm still on the fence about whether or not the shooting, if there was a second gunman or not. I mean, there could have been. There very well could have been. I've said that I've shown the evidence. I talked about this the other day. Sheila Aliens on YouTube. She has a video. I actually posted it on federaljack.com about the second shooter and is it solved? She shows the information that she found out about the guy wearing the camo pants that they handcuffed, and he said, "I didn't do it." Okay, doesn't mean that there wasn't a second shooter. It's just there was a lot of mass confusion, and this is a horrible situation. And there's a lot of questions that do need to be answered. Biggie is, where's the video footage from the school? Because there's cameras there, so where's the video footage from the school? Oh, we can't release it for national security. I remember some absurd reason. No, show the video footage. You don't have to put it all over nightly news, but make it available for John Q. Public to at least download it or get, or have it up for video, on the sheriff's department site or whatever the case may be, state police, whatever it is. Have it up available. Show us the evidence. There are questions that need to be asked. Whether or not it is a false flag, I'm still kind of on the fence. But regardless, their agenda and their reaction to it is obvious. They are going to use this because there's dead kids. And nothing, if it bleeds, it leads. And it works with not only the news media, but politics. And the media, if you can't tell, is just the lapdogs of the politicians and the government, then I don't know what to tell you, because they're out there attacking the Second Amendment. It's outdated. Obama needs to repeal it. It's got to go. We need total gun control, gun bans, this, that, the other thing. We do not need gun bans. We do not need to have, I don't know why people think it's so easy to get a gun. Oh, it's easy to get an AR-15. You can just walk into a store and buy one. No, you have to have a background check. You have to have in the case down here in Florida, okay, and I know state by state it varies, but it's not as easy as people make it out to be. You know, the anti-gun lobby would have you believe that it's easy. It's easier to buy an AR-15 and a Betamax than it is to go buy a pair of sneakers, and that's just not factually correct. I mean, it's not. That's what they're doing right now. Is people are so emotional, just like after 9/11. They control the narrative. So let's not even look at it right now about it being all the shadiness, and we can get back into that later. Let's look at the reaction to the situation, right? The smoke wasn't even done clearing, right? The smell of gunpowder was still in the air, and the calls for gun control. That was the first thing they called for. They didn't call for, hey, media, leave the family alone. I mean, the politicians could have said right off the bat, look, I know this is a horrific event, and I'm sure people in the country want to know what's going on, but, this obsession with 24/7 instant access to everything, give the family a break, give the families, I should say, a break, give the town a break, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of the problem and a lot of the misinformation out there that I was referencing comes from the mainstream. Now, I know there's a lot of disinfo out there from some alternative media places. More often, that is well-intentioned people running with stuff because, unfortunately, we've become so jaded to conspiracy and to not believe the government that we're more apt to run with that. But part of the issue with that is, and I mentioned this the other day, is that we're so quick to blame conspiracy that if there's not a conspiracy, we still try to find conspiracy if it's not there. But I see that a lot with. I don't want to say that in all the cases. Maybe something if it's more horrific, and in this case, that's definitely the case. I think because it's so horrific with the children. I think some of us maybe don't want to think that an individual human being would do that. I think it's easier to believe that the government would create some CIA mind-controlled zombie, which they do. I'm not saying they don't. They do. Mind control experiments, it's real. Goes back thousands and thousands of years. I was just talking to Fritz Springmeier about this. You heard the broadcast the other day. That's not what I'm talking about. But in this case, maybe perhaps that doesn't apply. I don't know yet with that. Okay, I'm still not sure. But regardless, their reaction to it does. And, it's like Feinstein talked about the fact that she's been wanting to ban assault rifles. They're just waiting for the opportune moment. They know, just through the law of averages, and crunching numbers, that eventually all the drugs out there, somebody's going to snap. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear to everybody out there. Gun control laws, period, would not have stopped this kid from getting those guns. They already have tight gun control laws in Connecticut. They have strict laws, some of the strictest out of the 50 states. This kid still got the guns, okay? So the gun control didn't work because I know the mainstream media has been throwing it out there. Well, if Piers Morgan says this, he's like, well, he got access to the gun. So I guess her being an armed homeowner didn't really save her. Now, did it? Well, Piers, if you want to get technical, why don't you tell the details of it? Because I'm sure as a journalist, if you've done and I'm doing air quotes when I say journalist, but according to you doing your due diligence, wouldn't you have looked into how the mother died? The authorities have released it. They've given some details. And if you believe what they're releasing, she was shot in the head 4 times. Well, she could have tried to stop him, blah, blah, blah. She was sleeping in her bed when he shot her. She probably didn't even see it coming. He probably walked up, raised the rifle, aimed it at her head, and pop, 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 pop in the head 4 times. She didn't. She probably was sleeping, dreaming, and never woke up. Okay? Who knows? I mean, maybe you hope she went out that way so she at least didn't have to experience any those last few seconds of horror and terror. But he shot her in the head while she was in bed sleeping. So no law no, nothing is going to protect you against that. Even if the gun wasn't there. If the kid had a hammer, he could have walked up and bludgeoned her to death with a hammer or a bat, which has happened. There's cases of home invasions where the attackers had nothing more than baseball bats, and they beat four. In one case, I remember it was a couple years ago. It was in Deltona, Florida, if I remember correctly. I think it was 7 people were killed over an Xbox and a couple other things. They beat 3 girls to death and 4 guys, and they tortured them. There was only a couple of them. It was like 2 or 3 guys with bats. And because they had weapons and the other people didn't, unfair playing field, and they ended up killing and torturing and killing all of them with bats. So I guess we should ban baseball bats while we're at it. See, the point is, people are going to murder. However, they're going to murder. They're if the gun wasn't available, something else would have been available for this kid to kill his mother. He would have gotten a bat, a knife, a fork, a spoon. He could have gotten anything. I mean, a pipe. Anybody play Clue? Remember playing Clue back in the day? I mean, remember all the little murder weapon icons that you were supposed to? How many different ways were there to take somebody out? I mean, come on. So this kid would have done it whether or not he had a gun, whether or not he had bullets. Caveman used to kill each other. Did they have guns back then? No, they had stone tools. So, did they outlaw stone tools? No, they wouldn't have eaten, and they really wouldn't have gotten anything done. So, you know what I mean? Well, guns are only meant to kill people. No, there's lots of cases out there where people have foiled crimes to stop them from happening because they had a gun on them. Case in point, since this happened, by the way, there's been multiple cases where, nuts are going off. And ladies and gentlemen, if everybody says, well, it's the gun's fault, all these people are going crazy. No, it's not. That's stupid. That's an appeal to emotion. They're appealing to your emotional state with just complete just lies is the only way to put it. Okay, the guns don't wake up and say, I'm going to go kill anybody or anything like that. And a lot of the people are going crazy. If you remember, people have been saying for years, around 2012, around the shift, hey, we're only a day away. There's a lot of energy. I'm sure people have been feeling maybe more anxious lately. So during this shift, we're literally in the last day, right? The end of ages, the last, day and a half, 2 days of the one age, and we're going into a new age. Maybe that change of energy, the people with a weaker mind or whatever really are starting to get agitated, and you this kind of stuff will happen. Plus, all sorts of people are on medications. So yeah, you're gonna see, people go nuts. I'm sure you'll see more people do stupid things, but in these other cases, there was an armed individual, and in every case they stopped. And in one case, it was the Clackaman's Town Mall. I think it was the kid. He was a teenager. He ran in with an AR-15, announced he was here to kill people, and he started shooting. And I think he killed 2 people, and then he killed himself. And well, that's weird. If you're going to do a mass shooting, why would you only kill 2 people? Well, you know what the media left out was that there was an armed kid, 22. I say kid because I'm older, but he was 22, man. And or maybe he was 23 or something like that, around there, 22, 23. And he's a security guard at another mall, and he's an armed security guard. He's got his own, he carries a gun off duty or whatever. He's got a concealed weapons permit. And he drew down, and he was going to take the kid out. And he admits that he put his finger on the trigger. He lined up. He had a clear headshot. He was about to shoot him, and he noticed behind the kid's head somebody move in a store. And he realized, like any good shooter, that he didn't have a clear target. So he took his finger off the trigger. He kept it on, but he didn't have it on it ready to squeeze it. He had it next to it. And then he kept an eye on the gunman, and he moved back into a little bit more cover than where he was, but he was still in plain view of the gunman, and he still had the gun drawn on him, and he had the sight on him. And he waited to see what was going to happen. And the gunman took off and ran to a stairwell and shot himself. Now, the media doesn't want you to know that because that kid was able to stop that guy from killing any more people, and he didn't even have to squeeze the trigger. And for the people out there that go, oh, I would have shot him, I would have this. You know what, dude? You've never been in that situation. I myself have been in a situation like that. Not where the guy's actually an active shooter where he's popping people off. I've had a situation where a guy pulled a gun on me, and before he could do anything, I've talked about it on air. I drew mine down on him, and he quickly ran like a little girl. I mean, when it happens to you in real life, the situation, and I analyzed the way I handled it, and I beat myself up. And I know this poor kid's probably going through, he was, the media asked him about it. He said, look, I stand by not shooting this guy. And I know there's people out there, I would have shot him. Okay, freaking cowboy, couch cowboy. You ever shot another human being? No, you probably haven't. And until you're in that situation, don't judge the kid. He said, I got tunnel vision, and when I had his head in my sight, I was about to squeeze the trigger, and he noticed behind the guy in the background there were people moving around, and he realized if the bullet missed by any means, he would hit somebody in the background and kill them. That, ladies and gentlemen, that is a perfect example of a good shooter, a good gun owner, a responsible gun owner. He could have just opened fire, right? Like these anti-gun nuts love to say, and the uber liberal left loves to, if you open fire, you would have killed more innocent people. This goes to show you that argument doesn't apply as an umbrella argument to every gun owner. This young man took the appropriate action. And to the people that are detractors of him, I say you shouldn't be judging him until you're in his shoes. Like the Indians used to say, don't judge a man until you walked a mile in his moccasins. And I shouldn't say, damn it, I said the word Indians again. To the native people, I apologize. And yes, I don't care if anybody says, oh, you're being PC. No, I'm not being PC. Okay? I've had Gwen on. We've talked about this stuff. You know how I feel about it. So I apologize. I'm going to rephrase that. Okay? Like the native people used to say, don't judge a man until you walk a mile in his moccasins, okay? So you've been in that situation. Don't try to be an armchair quarterback and tell me, well, I played Call of Duty and, I would have shot the guy. Okay, it's much different in real life, okay? More than half the time you don't need to kill somebody. Just the presence of having the gun deters people because nobody wants to die. And do you really have to take another human life over something stupid? I had the option. I could have killed the guy. He pulled a gun on me. I looked at it, and I was like, that thing looks like a toy gun. And I had to make a split-second decision. Do I blast the guy, or do I just try to, use it as a deterrent and then last-ditch effort, kill him if I have to? Well, I made the responsible decision. And I know it was hard for me because I had people coming up to me for weeks afterwards telling me I should have shot the guy. And they said, he had a toy gun. Well, you'd never know. I said, man, I've been around guns my whole life. I'm telling you, that thing looked like a toy. The cops even told me I should have shot the guy. 18 times they told me. I counted. 18 times they told me I should have shot the guy. Ridiculous. The guy that was with me was like, I can't believe he kept telling you should have shot the guy. Even in the back, they told me, which, by the way, would have been murder. Okay? I could have. I didn't. As soon as I drew my weapon on, I said to him, look, also, I didn't say get down, mother effer. I drew my gun and said, look, I got one too. Just like that. And that's all I had to say. And the guy screamed. He dropped his shirt, put it in his pants, dropped the shirt, took off. I mean, he really didn't even get a chance to get the gun out of his shirt. He kind of had his hand on it and was pulling it out when I drew on him. And it was a deterrent enough. The store owner that it happened in front of, he came out and told me the guy, and I was going to let the guy go because I knew he was one of the local crackheads. I just figured he was being a moron. I mean, that's the level of I used to go through weird stuff like this down in Miami Beach all the time, down in South Beach. It's the kind of weirdness that goes on down there. But anyway, the store owner said the guy tried robbing somebody the day before, or he had just tried robbing somebody the day before, and I guess he had successfully robbed somebody a couple hours before, whatever the case was. So I said, well, I'll get the cops involved, and that's when the cops came down and arrested the guy, blah, 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 blah. But they told me I should have shot him. So I know how this kid must feel. And in this guy, in this case, he had actually an active shooter where they actually killed a couple people. So mine was, just like in the case of Julia, my understanding is I understand it, but only on a smaller level from my personal experience, as opposed to what this kid went through. Anyway, I give credit to this young man for being a responsible shooter, and that he's a prime example of how just having the weapon, the guy didn't shoot anybody else. He retreated as soon as he saw somebody else had a gun, he was like, uh-oh, took off, didn't know what to do, shot himself. So this young man, as far as I'm concerned, ended the shooting spree and saved countless amounts of other people in that mall that day. And the fact that he didn't shoot because he knew he didn't have a good target, that's one of the rules of being a good shooter and a responsible gun owner, is you have to know what your target is. You shouldn't be just randomly firing. It's not a video game. So kudos to this young man for not doing it. And he didn't need to, because he still ended the situation. He stayed in clear view of the guy with his gun drawn on him. So the guy knew he had a bead on him. So again, kudos to this young man. You are a hero, Sarah. And to the detractors, back off. You wouldn't, you don't know what you would have done unless you were in the kid's shoes. So, and there was another episode where there was an off-duty sheriff at a movie theater. And by the way, you're going to get a lot of copycats now because of the media, too. The media is hyping this, and you're going to get nutbags out there that are like, oh, look, this guy's famous. I want to be famous, too. And so thank you, mainstream media. And again, they know this, and they know with all the energy shift and everything else, they understand this, ladies and gentlemen. The reaction to this whole thing is being manipulated. I mean, we have to look into the case itself. But I've said I think the best way to handle it is to separate the two: an investigation into the response and their agenda, and then a separate investigation into the shooting itself, because it's such a large event, and they're going to use it as their pillar event to attack the Second Amendment and our rights. I think we really, 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 really need to take the time. If different alternative media websites need to come together to look at this, and I'm getting sidetracked on this because this is important, and I didn't want to lose this thought. Okay, and then I'll get back into what I was talking about, and I want to play some audio for you guys. But really quick, different alternative media sites need to, whatever, outlets, whatever, we all need to work on this together, because this is big. Look, if we don't come together as a team, just like my old intro used to say, okay, we're all screwed. That's what's, going to happen to us. They're going to railroad this through, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to play you audio from some people in Britain and in Australia, or I should say the UK and Australia, and you're going to hear how they were same situation. They had school shootings, kids died. The media, everything out there, they pushed the agenda, and it's happening again. And you have people falling for it because they're emotional, because innocent little kids died. And I'm not taking away anything from those innocent kids or the teachers that the young lady that threw herself in front of the students she hit her students in the lockers and then lied, and she ended up sacrificing herself, I guess, being killed by the gunman. I'm not trying to take anything away from any of those people. The heroes of that day are true heroes. It was a horrific thing, and what those teachers did to protect those children. Honestly, I think they do deserve recognition for it. The ones that are deceased and no longer with us, and the ones that are still alive, I think they deserve recognition for at least how they acted in trying to protect the kids. It could have been much worse. So, me talking about this, me bringing this up, in no way is trying to defame or degrade what happened, by the way. And me talking about this stuff is not trying to defame or degrade in any way what those people went through. Rather, me discussing this and coming up with this idea is important to me, because I want to do them right. I want to make sure that they get justice for what happened to them and their family members, and I want to make sure that if we can do this right, then we can get them justice and we can protect our own rights. I mean, it's a twofold thing. It needs to be done. They deserve justice as well. So I think what we need to do is, I think that we should focus on, we need to come together, and then, we could do it in two groups. One group gets into the shooting itself, the day, the guy, any connections, blah, 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 what's real, what's not. And the other group can tackle the response. And then we can sit down and talk amongst ourselves, get together, chat, share it with the world. But I think we need to focus on this because it is a big issue. It's not like the other shootings. That's why I've taken a step back, because I'm trying to figure out how to tackle this, because it's such a big thing in this huge push for gun control. And that's why I'm gonna air the audio. I'm gonna air, and then I'm gonna argue with Piers Morgan. So without ranting too much more, I want to have some time to play the audio here. And the first thing, this is what I originally wanted to cover really quick. When I don't know if anybody has seen this. I'm sure they have. There's a lot of alternative media sites out there. A lot of people that are talking about this. There's a video out there by different agencies, organizations, whatever, alternative media sites, of this Connecticut State Police spokesman. He's a lieutenant, and he's talking about he was doing a press conference the other day. And I saw the original full-length one. And what happened was somebody edited it down, and you have to look real close when you watch the video, but you'll see it skip. And he's talking about, this is the one where they're talking about, he said that they're going to arrest, or they're going to try to prosecute people for misinformation. Well, they cut out a rather large section of the audio. And when they do that and they splice it together, it takes it completely out of context. And if you're not careful, and if you don't look carefully, they did it pretty good, whoever edited it. But this is what's going around. Now, somebody could say, well, we did it for time, or we did it for this. No, you could have left it in because it's not that much longer. I mean, the whole clip is like 3.5 minutes, and it's only about a minute and maybe 2 minutes of the full clip that you actually need to hear. But the clip that they edited down is only like a minute and 20 seconds or something like that. And you'll hear him. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to play the garbage clip. Okay, the one that's been edited, we'll say, and I want you to hear how it sounds, and you'll hear it sounds like we're going to come after the alternative media if you post on social networking sites, which people are all reacting to. And I've been saying that's not what he said. And I actually had somebody comment on this and say, "Oh, you're supporting the guy because you played the sheriff's audio once before," and which I did. You said you didn't think he was coming after people, and you're blah blah blah. You're pushing blah. You're going back and forth. No, I wasn't. I was trying to tell you because I could see people making a big deal out of it already, and I said no. And now that people have been making a huge deal out of it and writing articles, and I want to try to set this little myth straight really quick. Okay, this is what he supposedly said. Let me play what he supposedly said first. Here you go.
One thing that's becoming somewhat of a concern, and that is misinformation that's being posted on social media sites. It is important to know that we have discussed with federal authorities that these...
And by the way, I have to pause it. If you notice really quick, I'll rewind it a second. I'll let you hear it again in entirety, but when I say as it's playing, when I say now, okay, it's going to be right after the clip. In fact, you know what? I won't even say anything. I'll keep my mouth shut so you can hear it. Listen really quick, and as he's talking, you'll hear a bloop. And when you watch the video, you actually see it. And it's titled Connecticut Police Just type in on YouTube, Connecticut Police Spokesman Newtown, and then I'm sure it'll come up. And watch the video, and you'll hear it. But listen really quick. You'll hear it where it skips. And I'm going to let it play through, and then I'm going to play the full, unedited part. So you can hear it in its entirety, because it's the context changes a little bit when you listen to it with this edited piece. So it's important.
It's becoming somewhat of a concern, and that is misinformation that's being posted on social media sites. It is important to know that we have discussed with federal authorities that these issues are crimes. They will be investigated statewide and federally, and prosecution will take place when people perpetrating this information are identified. Again, all information relative to this case is coming from these microphones, and any information coming from other sources cannot be confirmed, and in many cases, it's been found is inaccurate. So I simply, that's the newest twist today, that we want to make sure that's perfectly clear that social media websites that contain information relative to this case are not being posted by the Connecticut State Police, are not being posted by the Newtown Police, are not being posted by any authorities in this case. So any of that information and people that are putting that information up there in any manner, all right, that can be construed as a violation of state or federal law, will be prosecuted.
Now, the reason this is important that I bring this up, and I'm not trying to debunk anything or what happened, Popeye, you're usually for conspiracy if it's there. Again, we need to look into this. This is a big thing. So right now I'm talking about the response to it. And some of the disinfo that's out there is that what you just heard. Now, to me, that would sound like a threat. Oh, my God, anything that you post on social media websites, alternative media, oh, my God, they really are coming after us. Holy cow, this must be a conspiracy. Now, let's listen to the full audio of that, okay? Shall we? Let's listen to the full press conference, picking up right where it started with that one, except without editing out the content.
Becoming somewhat of a concern, and that is misinformation is being posted on social media sites. There has been misinformation coming from people posing as the shooter in this case, posing using other IDs, mimicking this crime and crime scene and criminal activity that took place in this community. There's been some things in somewhat of a threatening manner. It is important to know that we have discussed with federal authorities that these issues are crimes. They will be investigated statewide and federally, and prosecution will take place when people perpetrating this information are identified. Again, all information relative to this case is coming from these microphones, and any information coming from other sources cannot be confirmed, and in many cases...
Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to rewind that one more time for you guys so you can hear him say that one more time, okay? And you can get the full context. Did you hear what he said? There were people posing as the shooter, okay? Going on and doing other stuff. And I'm not saying that, like, the story is 100% accurate, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, here's an inconsistency that I have to point out. The video that's being sent around that's amping everybody up has been edited. So if you're going to at least get pissed off, at least have the full information, understand it in its full context. If you're still pissed off, then that's fine. I'm not that you can be pissed off. That's your emotion. That's your right. But at least have what he said in its full context. Listen again.
One thing that's becoming somewhat of a concern, and that is misinformation that's being posted on social media sites.
Now, that is where the edit stops in the other one, and then it goes to, this stuff will be prosecuted, blah, 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 blah. Listen to what he says was being posted, and that's what they're going after, as I said the other day.
There has been misinformation coming from people posing as the shooter in this case, posing using other IDs, mimicking this crime and crime scene and criminal activity that took place in this community. There's been some things in somewhat of a threatening manner. It is important to know that we have discussed with federal authorities that these issues are crimes. They will be investigated statewide and federally, and prosecution will take place when people perpetrating this information are identified. Again, all information relative to this case is coming from these microphones, and any information coming from other sources cannot be confirmed, and in many cases it's been found is inaccurate.
Okay, so, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, this was right within the first, I think this was I'm not sure if this was, I don't think it was the day of, I think it was the day after. I think it was Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday morning, but this was 11:49 a.m. is actually the timestamp you see on the screen when they were doing the live broadcast. The point is, you can see he was not talking about social media as in the alternative media. He did not say the alternative media if you're posting news stories about this. He referenced, and the people, when he said, you will be prosecuted or whatever, the people he referenced were such as people posing as the shooter, this, that, the other thing, which there are a-holes out there that do that. And I'm sure that might be illegal in the state. What he's saying, at least this is what I took from it, is to those people that did that, we're going to figure out who you are, and if you broke laws, and if we can prosecute you, we will. There is maybe part of that emotional based. I'm sure some of it might be because there was an emotionally charged thing. I know some of the cops, I know some of the families are complaining that the police were very callous. You can go on Pigmine 3, the YouTube channel, Pigmine 3, and you'll see up there, there's a clip from CBS where the families were talking about how they were pretty much blown off or whatever. But I don't want to rant too much because we're running out of time, and I do have another hour coming up, but I only have about 13 minutes before we got the next break here. So I want to get some audio in really quick. There's a clip I want to play for you guys. And I'm only going to play a portion of it, and then I want to move on to a few other things. But we're going to dispel a few gun control rumors now, and gun myths in itself. And here's one. They keep saying semi-auto. We need to ban semi-autos. They're military killing weapons. No, the military doesn't use semi-auto. They have the option on the selector switch, but their stuff's fully automatic, very different animal. Here's a police officer explaining the difference.
The confusion and misunderstanding over firearms is a result of the mislabeling. I have firearms here on the table. I have a fully automatic assault rifle, and many times the press likes to use those words, trigger words, if I might add. Assault rifle, military, fully automatic. This is a fully automatic assault rifle. This is banned, it's prohibited, and limited almost virtually to police and military use. A citizen cannot go into the store and purchase this. And yet, this is usually one that's displayed on your television set. These are usually the terms used by the news media. Then they'll pick up a semi-automatic firearm. This is a semi-automatic firearm. The primary difference is that the assault rifle, the fully automatic firearm, you pull a trigger once and it will repeatedly fire and will continue to fire until all rounds are expended. This is a semi-automatic firearm. You fire once with each pull of the trigger. If you notice, these two firearms look alike. They look very much alike. They operate entirely differently. This one is legal, semi-automatic. This one is an illegal, fully automatic. They look alike. Here, I have a hunting rifle. This is also semi-automatic and one used for hunting game. This also, being semi-automatic, fires one round with each pull of the trigger. If you notice, these two do not look alike, but they function alike. They are virtually the same, only cosmetically different. It's important to keep that in mind. A person will say this is fully automatic. The uninformed, most of the time the press, will refer to this as a fully automatic assault rifle and this as a fully automatic assault rifle. Please, by definition, this is the assault rifle. This is the only one that's fully automatic. It's prohibited for purchase in the United States except by police and law enforcement.
Now, you just heard from a police officer telling you it's prohibited, okay? And I wanted to pause it there because it leads into a John Stossel clip that I'll play later. But I hope that explains a little bit in case people don't understand, because, a lot of people, when they hear semi-automatic, they think, oh my God, a semi-automatic rifle, you could kill just dot. Well, yeah, as fast as I can squeeze the trigger, just like any other semi-automatic. I mean, if you're going to go up against fully auto, sniping, accuracy, semi-auto is way better. That's what I would have, that's what I would have chosen even if I had a fully automatic weapon, unless it was something like a saw, or something else, then, which is a squad automatic weapon, then, But still, you're not. The only time you're going to lay down that kind of fire is if you're just trying to give suppressive fire, trying to back out of a room or something, or if you're trying to clear a room. You're going to pretty much be like, brr, 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 brr. You're not going to want to, you know what I mean? It heats the barrel up too much. I mean, you can, but there are negative sides to it. So I hope that clears some of the misconceptions up a little bit between fully automatic and semi-automatic. Again, a semi-automatic hunting rifle looks drastically different than a semi-automatic quote-unquote assault rifle. But a real assault rifle, the real definition of a military assault rifle, would be something like a fully automatic M4 or an M16, something to that effect. Definitely not an AR-15. So, all right, really quick, I want to play this audio from. Let me see if I got the. Let me see where the Stossel stuff is, because there's. I only have about. I have a little less than 10 minutes here, and I just want to make sure that I got enough time to play. Yeah, I'm going to play the Stossel clip, and then on the in the second hour, I want to play some clips from the British and a few other things. You're going to hear the British tell you, don't give up your guns. You're going to hear Aussies tell you, and this isn't the same clip I've played before. This is different. You're going to hear how they were guilted and shamed into doing it, which is what's going on right now. Remember, I played that clip of Eric Holder saying we need to brainwash people into thinking differently about guns. That's what they're doing right now. They're using this. Everybody's emotional right now, and you're at your weak spot, and they're hammering you. They're hammering you. Who's out there hammering you, playing with your emotions and effing with your head? Is it gun owners? Is it the gun lobby? Is it the gun makers? No. Is it the guns? Are the guns harassing you? No. You know who it is? It's the news media. If it bleeds, it leads. If it bleeds, it leads. I mean, that's the way they roll. We all know it, right? Disgusting. So here, really quick, here's the John Stossel clip that I wanted to play. It's Myths. It's called Myth, Gun Control Reduces Crime. Check this out. This is John Stossel.
Well, you'll find out now as we begin our top 10 list, starting with number 10, gun control reduces crime. The horror of the shootings at Virginia Tech had many people talking about gun control.
It's about the weapons, the guns. Where did the killer get them?
They're shocked at how easy it is to purchase a gun.
It is simply too easy to obtain a firearm.
You see how the arguments are the same? Because this was filmed back not too long after Virginia Tech, back in 2007. So the argument is the same. It's the same thing. Flash forward 5 years. It's too simple to get a gun. No, it's not that simple as you would think.
The belief that gun control prevents gun crime is why many were upset this spring when
a bombshell court ruling could put handguns back in D.C. homes.
A court threw out Washington, D.C.'s 30-year ban on guns. And that's outrageous, said public officials.
More guns, very simply, lead to more violence.
I don't know how anyone could be serious in saying that, because the gun violence went up when they banned handguns.
Tom Palmer's one of the plaintiffs who sued D.C. over the right to have a gun. He's correct about gun violence going up. Since Washington's gun law passed, the murder rate actually increased, even while America's murder rate dropped. It's because guns can also save lives, says Palmer, as one saved his years ago in California.
We were walking down the street, and this group of young men took really strong exception to that. They stood up. 19 or 20 young guys followed us, and they told us, we're going to kill you. They'll never find the bodies. And I turned around and showed them the business end of a pistol.
Just pulling out the gun was enough to stop them.
Yeah, it works. Merely having a weapon and being able to display it when I was threatened saved my life.
Now, you may think that carrying a gun, as Palmer did, is illegal in most of America, but it's not. Many people don't realize that today in America, in about 40 states, it is legal to carry a concealed weapon on your person. And in those 40 states, there is no more violent crime or murder than in states where guns are restricted. The town of Kennesaw, Georgia, went a step further and passed a law requiring every household to have a gun. Did they then experience a crime wave? No.
Well, after the city ordinance passed, there was actually a decrease in reported crime in the Kennesaw area, especially violent crime.
Now, I don't want politicians ordering me to have a gun, and the law isn't enforced here. But townspeople we talk to like the law.
I think it makes people think twice.
This is a very peaceful place to be. We should have guns. I mean, that's what free society do.
These maximum security felons said they fear an armed victim much more than the police.
When you go to rob somebody you don't know, it makes it harder.
And they said gun laws don't matter to them. They don't obey them.
I'm not worried about the government saying that I can't carry a gun. I'm going to carry a gun anyway.
It's impossible to know exactly how often guns stop criminals because who reports a crime that doesn't happen? But people use guns in self-defense every day.
Often just showing a gun is enough to prevent the crime.
When robbers broke into Joyce and Raymond Pappin's home and attacked Raymond, he yelled,
"Get the gun, get the gun."
Joyce did, and when the robbers saw it, they ran away.
Boy, when he saw the gun, he just started running, and they weren't just walking fast. They were running. They had boots on. You could hear them boots a-clopping.
Joyce says having a gun changes the balance of power. And here's a controversial idea. Some Virginia Tech students say they wish students had been allowed to carry guns because one of them might have stopped the killer before he shot so many people. And that's what happened 5 years ago at the Appalachian School of Law. Hearing shots, 2 students went to their cars, got their guns, and helped restrain this shooter until police arrested him.
One of the things that the gun does is it equalizes unequals. My mom told me when I was a young boy, because she was armed, she was never afraid.
So, gun control isn't necessarily crime control. In fact, the National Academy of Sciences reviewed hundreds of studies and could not document a single gun regulation that reduced violent crime or murder.
If someone gets into your house, which would you rather have, a handgun or a telephone? You can call the police if you want, and they'll get there, and they'll take a picture of your dead body. But they can't get there in time to save your life. The first line of defense is you.
There you go. And that actually aired on ABC, which now will be one of the same channels. That'll tell you, because it's owned by Disney, but they'll be the first channel to tell you, hey, you should turn your guns in, be a good American, guilt you into it, play on your emotions, and, you know, the horrific emotions, or the emotions that are evoked, I should say, by the horrific actions of that day. And again, I'm in no way trying to take away from what happened to any of those people. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, disparage their names in any way or take away from it. It was a horrific, horrific thing. But what these scumbag politicians and these people that have agendas are doing is they're manipulating the general public. They're manipulating people's not only emotions but their thoughts. It's a huge mind control psyop now. I'm talking about the reaction to it, not the event itself. That's a separate issue. But the reaction to it itself is a huge psyop to get you to hate guns. Like Eric Holder, I played the clip the other day. Eric Holder back in 1995. We have to brainwash people about how they think about guns. We have to change how they think. So they hired ad companies to do it. He says it right there in the press conference on CNN. If you want to see the video, go listen to my show from the other day, from the 14th. From that night, I played it from December 14th. It's in the archives. And you can go to Federal Jack Tube, just Federal Jack Tube by itself, and you'll be able to watch the video. It's Eric Holder from 1995. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hour number 3 is up, but have no fear. One more hour. Hour number 4 is coming up. When we come back, testimony from people in Australia and in Britain why we should not give up our guns and shouldn't give in to the appeal to emotion. And wait till you hear what they have to say. What they did to them, they're mimicking and doing here. And interesting, there's a Brit involved, Mr. Piers Morgan. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 of this 1220 edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from federaljack.com. This is part 4, though, or hour number 4, not really part 4, but hour 4 of tonight's special 4-hour broadcast, where I did broadcast from 10 a.m., or excuse me, listen to me, 10 p.m. to midnight. I did one broadcast with an amazing lady, Julia Davis, and I urge you to support her and check her movie out. And here in hour number 2, I've been trying to go over some gun control myths. I wanted to cover that sheriff thing, or whatever they are, state police, where I played the whole clip. Just to, take from it what you will. I'm not trying to change your opinion, but I think you at least deserve to see the full unedited clip, not get an edited version of it and get pissed off at it because it's been edited to get you pissed off. How about you see the full thing and then understand the whole context of it? And we can dispel that, because that kind of stuff is important to get rid of so that we can sift through what's accurate and what's not accurate. And I think some of this stuff sometimes is done either by individuals that, without even realizing it, are part of the problem, because they're doing it to push they're trying to find a conspiracy in something, even if it's not there. And believe me, I'm the first person to cry conspiracy if there is one. I'm not bashing it, trust me. But sometimes I think maybe inside of us there's, or at least inside of some people, maybe that's their way of dealing with it, is it's got to be a government op, it's got to be CIA controlled, because this guy couldn't have been that lunatic nutbaggy just to go do it by himself. And perhaps it is, but it's important to sift through what's real and what's not, and not have people get hung up on that kind of thing rather than pay attention to other parts of the reaction or anything like that. And that doesn't take away from the fact that Facebook did suspend somebody's account. And that's Facebook. That's just Facebook douchebaggery, and it is what it is. And Facebook is what it is, NSA gathering tool. But the point is, I just think you should have the full context of the clip. So I'm glad I was able to go over that, and I wanted to cover a few other things where people have been able to stop stuff. But now I want to get into what I promised you. I want you to hear from what the Brits and the Aussies have to say about gun control, and listen to what they say, because you're going to hear them talk about how they were duped into thinking that, hey, they wouldn't have their hunting rights taken away, they wouldn't have this, they wouldn't have that taken away, or it was just assault rifles, they would leave pistols, blah blah blah. Now they're going, they want to go after that, and then shotguns and everything else. And you'll hear how they did it. They shamed them into doing it after kids were killed, and that's exactly what's going on today. The appeal to emotion. Listen.
I never thought that it would come to this. No, I didn't.
Hey, we've had enough. Our way of life is threatened.
And things these days are getting so out of hand because the governments are telling us what we can and what we can't do.
Leave us to choose our own rights.
I'm worried that I might not be able to go shooting with my dad.
Our livelihood, our way of life, employment, we're finished. It's as serious as that.
This is what a disarmed country looks like. This is how little is left once free men and women surrendered their right to own a firearm. The silence was deafening, marching like a defeated people, thousands of shooters and sportsmen, grabbing at one last chance to resist, fighting for a freedom they had already lost.
I'm not doing it for shooting, I'm doing it for freedom. I don't care if I never fire another shot, but I'm damned if I'm going to let my government make the decision for me.
My father once said to me that the day you hand your guns in, that means that the country's no good to live in anymore.
No one really thought that they would take your rabbit guns and your duck guns. That just couldn't happen. It was an impossibility.
We thought no one would ever do anything to us. We were wrong.
Too bloody late now. Once the guns are gone, you're not going to get them back.
Giving into government by giving up their firearms. Gun owners were shamed into silence while politicians and the anti-gun forces moved swiftly, turning 2 tragic shootings into legislative opportunities.
It becomes quite clear that if you want a safer society with lower gun violence, then you've got to reduce your gun ownership.
In Great Britain, a total ban on handguns. Within a year, storage rooms at police departments were filled with firearms. No matter how valuable or how rare, they were turned in by law-abiding citizens to be destroyed.
The main thing that's been destroyed in the UK is democracy. We've had a vociferous minority hoodwink the media and the public into believing what they've done is right.
We've basically accepted that our government possibly have a point to make. And I think that we should have told them very clearly that they do not.
There's the old saying, if the good men stay silent, only the evil is heard. And the good men, we sat at home, all 60,000 of us, and we were silent. A very bad mistake.
In Australia, it took just 2 weeks for an outright ban on all semi-automatic firearms and pump-action shotguns to become law.
We're supposed to be in a democratic country here in Australia, but I'm starting to wonder about that now. How dare the government take away my gun? How dare they do that? Because I haven't done anything wrong.
On May the 9th, I was allowed to own firearms. On May the 10th, I was a criminal if I didn't hand them in. And what did I do?
Just because I happen to be a firearms owner, I happen to be some sort of potential murderer or some sort of monster. And that's just not the case.
It's the feeling of being a second-rate citizen. It's the feeling of being a Jew in Nazi Germany. That's the same feeling.
Gun owners forced to surrender their firearms to the saw blade, the scrap heap, and the blast furnace.
Strike the pen.
And for collectors like Len Martin, all he has left is memories. Photographs of what freedom once felt like. A cult collection worth thousands of dollars, gone forever.
My family fought for this country, for his rights, my rights, and they did it for nothing. Because what we've got now is, I believe we're heading for we're close to a dictatorship.
45 seconds. But it's more than just losing a firearm. It's losing a tradition and a cherished right. And that's a loss that can never be reclaimed.
That firearm was my father's. It was mine. It was going to be my son's. And they've taken it from me. And they shouldn't be allowed to do that.
The chief of firearms in South Australia said to me, "Oh, you'd be happy with the money you got for your guns, wouldn't you?" I looked at him, I said, "You don't understand, do you? I don't want the money. I want my guns."
I lost a Ruger 44 carbine rifle, which I use for pig shooting, and I lost a Rimfire 22 semi-automatic, which is the first firearm my father ever gave me, and that really hurt.
A hurt that runs deep. Olympic shooters feel abandoned by their own government. Although they still compete beneath the flag of Great Britain, they've been forced to leave their homeland and practice in another country.
We purportedly live in a free country, but I can't live in my own country and do my own sport, which is an Olympic sport. I have to go to another country, somewhere else in the world, and do it. So it flies in the face of British justice. It's, I think it's appalling. I'm horrified at my own country.
But gunsmiths and gun shop owners haven't only been robbed of their sport and their rights, they've lost their livelihood altogether. One by one, they will have no choice but to close.
It's a sad way to end 100 years of tradition, because one of the true icons of the sporting goods industry has been ruined by a government decision to just take away our firearms.
They can just say, from tomorrow, you're only allowed to have one shotgun per person. Or if it suited them, no shotguns per person. And that's a hell of a loss, and we have lost that.
Silence which has led to submission and, even worse, division within the ranks. Now, gun owners in Australia and Great Britain will be the first to admit they only have themselves to blame.
That's a very sad indictment, and our biggest enemy has been ourselves, and apathy.
We did not stand up with pride at all.
One of the biggest mistakes people can make is disunity. That will draw you down every time, and you can bet that the media and the politicians will try and exploit that lack of unity.
And that's just what happened. Not only did gun owners submit to the political pressure and the nonstop media spin, they gave in to public pressure as well, turning in not just the guns that were banned, but all of their guns, and giving up on their rights altogether.
We find a lot of people that have been happy gun owners in the past are now giving up their licences and their sport and selling their firearms off.
I've lost interest in the whole thing because of, you know, the extra costs in keeping the guns and just the new regulations that have come in as well. It's all becoming too difficult.
There's a lot less young people shooting now because it's just so difficult. A lot of older shooters are passing in the cards because, you know, they're sick of being treated very poorly by the government. So, you know, I'm fairly worried that in a few years we won't be able to shoot at all.
Sacrificing their rights for the politicians' false promise of a safer society.
The thing that's really worrying is this gesture politics, the idea that you can ban one sort of gun or another and actually make the public safer. Of course, it's a nonsense.
I understand that they are upset that they're losing their sport. I understand that. It is the price that has to be paid for living in a safer society.
I don't think people believe that anyway, to be honest. Common sense dictates that no, they're not going to be any safer.
The crime rate's not going to drop. The use of firearms by criminals will still be there, and they'll still obtain their firearms on the black market. And the black market is booming in Australia at the moment.
I think the criminals are absolutely rejoicing at the fact that all legal guns are taken out of circulation.
And if you don't believe it, just listen to what this street thug told us in London.
There's a crock. It's making no difference whatsoever. I mean, the people in the street, they're going to get their guns anyway. No problem.
Gun bans that won't make a difference, and gun owners struggling to stop the momentum against them.
It's not a question of what next. We already know what's next.
They're already screaming about more bans. It hasn't stopped.
It could well be shotguns next. It could well be rifles next. It might be both.
The end will be that they will probably ban all types of guns, all shotguns, which people enjoy. And then that'll be that. There'll be no sport of shooting whatsoever.
Gun owners who set themselves up for defeat.
Oh, yes. I mean, we sat at home waiting for the truth to be told. The truth is never told.
They not only lost their will to fight, but were willing to surrender what they know is rightfully theirs. It's a lesson learned the hard way, and their message to gun owners in America is simple. It will happen to you if you let it.
You cannot sit back in your small hometown believing that the Browning A5 in the cupboard will be there forever. Once registration comes in and takes place, the police will know where it is, and within 5, 10, 15 years, or when it's politically correct, they will come and get it.
Don't let the American legislators put the short end of the wedge in, because once they find a way of doing it, and once it's successful, then they will do it time and time again.
Stay strong. Don't budge 1 inch.
As soon as they start to suggest a ban on one sort of gun or one type of gun, say no. Do everything you can to oppose it, because it's just the beginning of a broader ban. For God's sake.
There you go. Right from the mouth of people who experienced it themselves. Right from people that experienced it themselves. Now, I want to play a clip from a little bit of information about Australia. And by the way, I was going to play some Piers Morgan clips tonight and rip into him, but because the testimony of other people I have that I consider to be far more important than Piers scumbag Morgan, I'm going to put it on hold. And if I don't get to it on Friday, the end of the world show, then Johnny English and I will tear Piers apart on Sunday, because I'm sure Johnny would love to rip into Piers. So maybe I'll put it off till Sunday, and the two of us can go off on Piers, and we'll just we can spend an hour alone just ripping apart his arguments and how invalid it is. But I don't want to give that. I decided I don't want to give that bloviating moron. And yeah, that's an ad hominem attack, because he attacks everybody else. So dish it out if you can dish it out, Piers, and you can take it. I don't want to give the overrated windbag any airtime. I'd rather give it to people I respect. So, and play some more audio evidence for the listener that might be on the fence and say, well, I don't know, I'm really upset about the shootings. Listen. Now, by the way, he did say in his interviews that the UK, the crime rate dropped and everything else. So I'm going to play you some audio evidence to the contrary. But there's actually an article from the Telegraph dated, let's see, this is July 2009. The United Kingdom is the violent crime capital of Europe and has one of the highest rates of violence in the world, worse even than America, according to new research. So there you have it. Stick that in your hat, Piers. It's over on the Telegraph. I'll repost it as soon as the show's done up on federaljack.com. Just type in Google search, UK is violent crime capital of Europe. That's the title. I'm sure it'll come up. So there you have it, Piers. You can say all you want that, oh no, the UK is so great, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, whatever you want to believe. Keep saying that, maybe one day you'll believe it, Piers. Okay, let's listen to some audio evidence about Australia banning guns and some statistics there, and even some stuff from the UK too. You'll hear them talk about some things in the UK. But listen to, because I've heard Australia style gun control should be brought here to the United States. Well, let's listen to what the people in Australia have to say and some facts.
A gun buyback that forced law-abiding citizens to surrender their firearms in a nationwide roundup and meltdown of all semi-automatic firearms and pump-action rifles and shotguns. 640,000 ordinary conventional firearms confiscated and destroyed.
It was an absolute joke and a tragedy. I actually turned in 3 firearms, and it broke my heart.
I mean, it was 40 years of collecting, and I can't say it any other way than that. I felt sick. I had to hand them in because if I didn't, I was going to jail.
There's no ifs or buts about that. By taking that gun away from me, they've stolen something from me.
A right stolen by their government, promising safety in return for its gun bans. But now citizens know the frightening truth. The cost of lost liberty can be measured in the loss of life.
It's become very, very obvious, even to blind Freddie, that the expenditure of $500 million has done absolutely nothing to reduce crime. It certainly didn't do what the government touted it would do, which was to reduce crime. It hasn't done that at all. In fact, there's been more. This has been a lot of bull and hasn't really done much to help society and with its problems.
Cold, hard facts the anti-gun forces can no longer escape. Armed robberies have skyrocketed, up 69%. Assaults involving guns rose 28%. Gun murders increased 19%. And a new phenomenon, home invasions jumped 21%. An increase politicians insist they can't explain because they're still trying to legally define what a home invasion is and what the penalty should be.
Part of the difficulty is that there is no clear definition of home invasion in the law.
Never cease to be amazed at the ingenuity of lawyers.
If the politicians want a pay rise, boom, that's done in 20 minutes. But to define home invasion, what a joke.
I have no trouble at all in defining what a home invasion is. I think if someone sets their foot inside your door uninvited, they are invading your home and your privacy.
And victims who have survived home invasions don't need a definition. They've lived through hours of terror. Arthur Field was tied up, his hands and feet taped, his phone lines cut, while 2 robbers ransacked his house.
And they jumped on me and knelt on my chest and grabbed me around the throat because I immediately started calling out, help.
I don't know how many men, they start smashing the windows. There was a lot of glass shattering, a lot of noise outside, and I stood in the kitchen, I was trembling.
The Zawadzkis remember thugs running through their home, demanding money and threatening to kill them. Mr. Zawadzki says if he had a firearm, the suspects never would have gotten away.
Do you will stand waiting till you get killed? Or you will defend yourself? Tell me true, you will defend yourself.
Scars that never heal. Citizens left powerless. But it's criminals who have been empowered and emboldened by the new gun laws because the innocent can't fight back.
What's happening today is that the offender, the bad guys, are happy to break into somebody's house. They're not frightened to break into somebody's house while they're at home.
Citizens denied the right to protect themselves by a justice system that won't.
Well, my opinion of the legal system here is it's absolutely weak. Weak as water. I mean, it's because they've just got no backbone. That the sentencing for various crimes is just pathetic.
And police who can't. They're undermanned, and morale has never been lower.
It's very bad at the moment. It's never been worse. Since 1993, we've had a real decrease in over 230 sworn police officers in this state.
These policemen have joined the job, policewomen have joined the job to go out and do it, and they can't even attend at breaks or assaults because there's no vehicle to even get them there. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Gun laws that have backfired. And Australians who have been forced to hide behind bars and deadbolts. Some are even installing extensive security systems because the firearms they still own that haven't been banned have to be locked up, unloaded, and unavailable.
I mean, get real. If I have someone break in here, I've got to go get the bolt, get the rifle, find the ammunition somewhere else, put it all together, and then defend myself if this other person's got a firearm that's going to threaten my life. No way. It doesn't bloody add up.
A political fraud. Gun bans that haven't made a difference, and gun owners now struggling to stop a growing momentum against them.
The people pushing the removal of guns from the Australian society are already saying that's only the first step. Publicly, that's only the first step. Now we want the handguns, we want every other firearm.
They're warning to Americans, don't think it can't happen to you. It can, and it already is.
Unless you, as a firearms owner, get off your butt now and start to oppose those that want to take them off of you right here and now, I would say that within 5 to 10 years, the restrictions on gun owners in America will be similar to what happens in Australia.
Don't trust your politicians. Get in there, keep on their backs. Be a member of the NRA, be a member of your local gun club.
Be part of the NRA and never, ever, ever give up freedoms, because that's, in the end, that's all you've got.
I agree. And I mean, you don't have to join the NRA. I'm not going to tell you because I don't trust the NRA as far as you could throw them. But, he said, hey, join the NRA. And he did say join your local gun club. So I'll give him that. Let's get into another example. I want to play a little bit. I know I understand Joe might have played this the other day. I'm going to play you a little bit of audio from Susanna Gratia Hupp. And she's actually, after this incident, later on ended up getting voted into running for and voted into a state office. And she was a staunch advocate and still is for the Second Amendment right for people to carry and be able to protect themselves. And I want you guys to hear right from her mouth. This is testimony to Congress. And by the way, if you watch the video, if you ever get a chance to see the video, you'll see the faces like little Chucky scumbag Schumer are making while she's testifying. But listen to her story. Okay, she's a survivor of a from a crazy gunman. And listen what she has to say.
Let me make sure that you understand I'm not here representing the NRA. I'm not even a member. Okay? Secondly, I'd like to say that in your opening statements, you commented specifically on my testimony, saying that basically it had nothing to do with this issue. And I had to chuckle because then I noticed you had Mr. Brady up here, who was hit not with an assault weapon, but with a .22 caliber revolver. So getting beyond that, I didn't grow up in a house with guns. I don't hunt. I personally abhor hunting. But I was given a gun by a friend when I was 21 to carry in my purse for self-defense, and I was taught how to use it. A couple of years ago, my parents and I went to a cafeteria in Texas on a bright sunny day. We weren't in a dark alley where we weren't supposed to be. And as you all know the story, this madman drove his truck through the window. And he began shooting. Well, immediately, my father and I got down on the floor and put the table up in front of us. And this guy kept shooting. And you're thinking, what could it be? Is it a robbery? That's the first thing that generally comes to mind. And he keeps shooting. It took me a good 45 seconds to realize that this man wasn't there to commit a robbery. He wasn't there for a hit. He was there to simply shoot as many people as he possibly could. Now, I'd like to make something clear. I hear all this talk about how many bullets can go in a clip. I've been there. I can tell you it doesn't matter. It takes 1 second to switch out a clip. You can have 1 bullet or 100 bullets. It doesn't matter, guys. I've been there. He goes, dump, dump, just like that. That's not enough time to rush a man, I promise you. When I finally realized what was occurring, I thought, I got him. And I reached for my purse. He was maybe 12 feet away. You know, is it possible my gun could have jammed? Sure. Is it possible I could have missed? Sure. But I can tell you I've hit much smaller targets at much greater distances. But then I realized that a couple of months earlier I had made the stupidest decision of my life. I took my gun out of my purse and left it in my car. Because as you well know, in the state of Texas, it's sometimes a felony offense to carry a gun in your purse. I can tell you that I'm not mad at the guy that did this. As he continued, it was obvious that he was a madman. My father, at that point, said, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. He's going to kill everybody in here, and he rushed the man. No way. The guy turned, shot him in the chest. He went down, was obviously mortally wounded. For whatever reason, that made the man change directions and go off to my left. Shortly thereafter, someone at the back of the restaurant broke out a window. When I saw what looked like an opportunity to escape, I turned around and I grabbed my mother by the shirt and I said, come on, we've got to run, we've got to get out of here. And then my feet grew wings and I was out the back window. As soon as I got out, I realized that my mother had not followed me out. And as I learned from the police officers, she had crawled over to where my father was and cradled him until the guy got back around to her, put the gun to her head. She looked up at him, put her head down, and he pulled the trigger. My parents had just had their 47th wedding anniversary. She wasn't going anywhere. As I mentioned, I'm not really mad at the guy that did this. And I'm certainly not mad at the guns that did this. They didn't walk in there by themselves and pull their own triggers. The guy that did it was a lunatic. That's like being mad at a rabid dog. I'm mad at my legislators for legislating me out of the right to protect myself and my family. I would much rather be sitting in jail with a felony offense on my head and have my parents alive. As far as these so-called assault weapons, you say that they don't have any defense use. You tell that to the guy that I saw on a videotape of the LA riots, standing up on his rooftop, protecting his property and his life from an entire mob with one of these so-called assault weapons. Tell me that he didn't have a legitimate self-defense use. Just one final statement. I've been sitting here getting more and more fed up with all of this talk about these pieces of machinery having no legitimate sporting purpose, no legitimate hunting purpose. People, that is not the point of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is not about duck hunting. And I know I'm not going to make very many friends saying this, but it's about our right, all of our rights to be able to protect ourselves from all of you guys up there.
Well said. Well said. I'm looking into getting in touch with her. I've been actually trying to figure out how to do it so I can get in touch with her and interview her, because I think it would be interesting to be able to talk to her and get her perspective as to what's going on now and see what she has to say. She was interviewed by, I know Penn and Teller interviewed her. She did a little bit more of a, I guess you could say, in-depth interview about it. Well, not really in-depth as that. That was congressional testimony. But here, I'll let you hear what Penn and Teller. I'll let you hear the Penn and Teller piece really quick, and then I have another section of audio for you I want to play. And you'll hear, actually, you'll hear Susanna talk again, but you also hear from a couple other victims who lost loved ones to a maniac, and they say they wish that the person had a gun. But here's the piece from Penn and Teller's show called Bullshit that used to air. I think it was on Showtime or whatever, and they were talking about gun control and stuff here, and they interviewed Susanna here.
Carrying a concealed weapon, Susanna Hopp, well, let her tell her story.
Back in 1991, I was with my parents at a local restaurant,
And we had just finished eating when a madman drove his truck through the window and very methodically began executing people. And he wasn't spraying bullets. He had complete control over the situation. He was simply walking from one person to the next, taking aim, pulling the trigger. My father ran at the man and was very easily taken out. My mother ended up staying with him. When the gunman got back around to her, she was cradling my father, and the police were there at that point, and they saw her look up at the gunman, and he put his gun to her head, and he pulled the trigger.
You might think Susanna would be in favor of stricter gun control laws. You'd be wrong. She actually had a gun with her that afternoon, but in the days before right to carry legislation, the law required that she leave it in her car.
I was angry at myself for having made what I realize now was an incredibly stupid decision to obey a bad law and allow my family to get killed. And I was mad at my legislature because I absolutely felt that they had legislated me out of the right to protect myself and my family.
Gun control advocates might argue that if Susanna had use of her handgun that day, she might have made a horrible situation even worse. She might have accidentally shot a bystander or been shot herself.
But I'll tell you the one thing that nobody can argue with, it sure as heck would have changed the odds.
You got that right. It certainly would have changed the odds. And perhaps, what was it, she said 26 people or something like that were killed in Lubby's cafeteria that day? So, guess what? This isn't about, this isn't about hunting. This isn't about, shooting clay pigeons. And it's not about every gun owner or every prepper is a maniac. Okay, it's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is the politicians are cashing in on this, and they're using children as an excuse. They don't care about kids. Okay, they kill kids every day with bombs from drones and everything else, plus all the satanic stuff that they do on the back end, all the rituals, the pedophilia and everything else. They don't care about kids. Okay, so don't let them ever fool you into thinking this is for the kids. You got to disarm the public, and what better way to do it is to get the public to do it themselves. And even if the incident was staged, that's a different thing. That's a whole thing in itself. But even if it wasn't, they're capitalizing on this to take your guns. Okay, here's another clip because I got to jam them in here for time. Here's another clip. Again, this is a clip that was put together with Stossel, where he interviewed. You're going to hear Suzanne talk again, and you're going to hear a couple other people. And it's called Gun Laws That Kill. So check this out. Here you go.
You just having a gun to defend yourself puts us all at danger.
Organizations like the NRA, which are trying to increase deaths by gun in this country.
Violence is always going to be part of it if guns are available.
That made sense to me for years because it's logical to think that if more people own these, there'll be much more gun crime.
Also, I live in New York City. There are a lot of people here. If just some of them carried guns, I assumed there'd be gunfire all the time.
After all, if a couple gets into a fight or people get into a car accident, if they're armed, instead of just shouting at each other, they might shoot and kill each other. That's why it's a good thing that I now am not armed. Except,
what if the mainstream media, as so often happens, is wrong, or at least missing the point?
What if more guns means less crime? What about the idea of concealed carry, that a person should be allowed to have a pistol on his person, concealed?
I think it'd be a wild, wild west.
Oh, yeah? In New York City? Are you kidding me?
There'd be a lot more aggression.
There'd be a whole lot more shootings.
So I believed that for years, despite having become a libertarian. It was just intuitive. If everyone around here has a gun, that would lead to much more gun crime. But then I read a book titled More Guns, Less Crime. It's an odd title. It was sort of a head spinner for me. How can more guns lead to less crime? So please welcome the author, John Lott. So how can more guns? You have fans here. Well, we have a biased audience. I'm
It's nice to have that once in a while. But
why less crime? Make your case.
Just as you can deter criminals with higher arrest rates or higher conviction rates, the fact that a would-be victim might be able to defend themselves can also make it riskier for criminals to go and commit crime and deter some of them from doing it. My research finds that the police are probably the single most important factor for reducing crime, but I think the police themselves understand that they virtually always arrive on the crime scene after the crime's been committed. And that raises a question: what do you advise someone to do when they're having to confront a criminal by themselves? And simply telling people to behave passively actually turns out to be pretty bad advice.
But people injure themselves accidentally with guns. They kill themselves with guns. They get angry and shoot someone in a heated moment.
Right. Guns make it easier for bad things to happen. But they also make it easier for people to protect themselves and prevent bad things from happening. The question is, what's the net effect? I can't find a place in the world where we've had a ban on guns and you haven't seen an increase in murders afterwards.
Concealed carry terrifies a lot of people, and many people would be shocked to know how many states already allow it. And here is, I think, a very cool map that shows which states already have it. States that have concealed carry laws are colored yellow. This was the law in 1986. That's 25 years ago. Over the years, more and more states changed their laws to allow concealed carry. The mainstream media and my neighbors are so isolated here in New York City and Washington, D.C. Most of us have no clue that carrying a concealed weapon is already legal in most of the country. More places all the time, legal guns, yet crime does keep dropping. More guns, less crime. Dennis?
When John says that the consensus of experts is that these laws have led to the crime decrease, that is absolutely wrong. That is, and what he does is he conveniently excludes from his analysis all of the public health researchers that have weighed in on this.
John,
and time again they have said that John's data simply does not support his conclusions and that this is a very dangerous policy.
Bad data. Some people have said that.
Well, academics at over 200 different universities have looked at the data that I've had given out. We've had dozens of academic studies been published in peer-reviewed journals that have looked at the research that I've done.
All right, well, we have this chart from your book that shows violent crime rates after concealed carry laws passed. Here it is for murder. It's impressive. If after the law passed, crime went down. Well, we hear about the murders and robberies. We don't often hear about the murders or robberies that are stopped because someone has a gun. Sometimes people just show a gun and the robber runs away. Mark Walters says he pulled a gun and a robber ran. Nikki Gozer says because she could not pull a gun, her husband was killed. Susanna Hupp says her parents were killed because of gun restrictions. So, Susanna, let me start with you. You and your parents went to a restaurant. What happened?
Well, at that time in the state of Texas, we weren't allowed to carry, and so many of us had our guns out in our car. A madman drove his truck through the window and very methodically began executing people. He had complete control over the situation, and the short version is that he killed 23 people, including my parents. And I was very angry because I didn't have the opportunity to at least change the odds.
And had you had your gun, you would have stopped him.
You know, you can argue that back and forth. As your other guest said, you can what if it to death. But the one thing I don't think anybody can argue with is that it would have changed the odds. Not one of these mass shootings has occurred in a place where guns was allowed. I mean, stop and think of that. I can't think of a single place where a mass shooting has occurred where guns were allowed. These people look for fish in a barrel. They look for easy targets and high body bag counts.
And at this restaurant, you weren't the only person who left her gun in the car.
Yes, sir. There were a number of people. My manager friend, a young woman that was killed, her gun was out in her car. A man whose wife was killed. My parents had just had their 47th wedding anniversary, and when we had an opportunity to get out, my mom chose to stay with her mortally wounded husband, and so she was killed also.
And Susanna, you wrote a book about this.
Yes, sir. I wrote a book about that detailed the event, and it also, quite frankly, is intended to convert people who are maybe a little squishy about guns, because I'm not a hunter. I'm not into blasting Bambi. But
Blasting Bambi, your book title refers to the legislature. What happened?
we actually changed the law in Texas immediately before I got in, and we've made several improvements since then.
Nikki, what happened in your case?
My husband, Benjamin Gosser, was murdered right in front of me by a man who had been stalking me. I'm a right to carry permit holder in Tennessee.
You had a gun for your safety?
Yes, but because of Tennessee state law, at the time, I had to leave my loaded, permitted, legal weapon locked in my vehicle that night.
The Tennessee law said you can't take it any place that serves alcohol.
That is correct, but the man that murdered my husband brought one in, and he did not have a handgun carry permit. Criminals don't care about the law.
And had you had your gun, you think you would have been in a position to stop him?
I believe so, and like Susanna said, you know, at least we would have had a fighting chance at being survival instead of just being pure victims.
And you talk about the gun being the great equalizer.
Yes. If you really think about that, you know, a bad guy doesn't even have to have a weapon. You know, I'm a little lady. All it would take is a 250-pound man with his bare hands to overtake me. Yes, it is an equalizer.
I mean, you think of men carrying guns, but you think it's more important for women.
Absolutely, and especially a woman that may have a stalker.
Mark, what happened to you?
In 2002, my daughter was 2 weeks old. I was on my way to work, and I found myself the intended victim of a apparent carjacking attempt at about 6:30 in the morning. I had a lawfully carried Glock sidearm. I unlatched my seatbelt, drew my weapon, and stopped the attack or the impending attack against me.
Just by showing the gun?
Just by showing the gun. Just by showing the gun.
And
yes.
we don't know how often that happens because that doesn't get reported.
No, we do, actually. There are estimates. The Department of Justice is at about 800,000 is the lowest I've seen. The Gary Kleck has done studies that show approximately up to 2.5 million times. So I became one of those statistics.
The founders had just fought the American Revolution. They'd seen friends and family members die in the struggle to be free from tyranny. They wanted to make sure that people could defend themselves against an oppressive government. One of those founders, George Mason, observed to disarm the people was the best and most effective way to enslave them. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we ought to take up arms against our government, but I'm saying the founders were onto something that is captured by this bumper sticker. Politicians prefer unarmed peasants.
That is the truth. They do prefer unarmed peasants. They do not want you to be able to defend yourself. It's just the plain and simple fact. I know people don't want to hear that. I know sometimes I guess maybe it bothers people. It scares them to hear it, but it is the truth. Most people don't even realize that there are concealed weapons permit holders all over, walking around them all the time with guns. But if you ask, and he's done it, Stossel's asked people, and you'd be surprised. People actually think that there's nobody walking around with guns. They don't even realize it, and it's kind of pathetic because you'd think they'd know, but they don't. Here, check this out. Here's the last piece of audio I want to play for you guys. This is Stossel talking about when ABC interviewed him about this, and he gets into it, and he tells you what I was just saying. Check this out.
Hello, you're watching ABC News Now. I'm Rob Simmelcare in New York. ABC's 2020 is planning a special one-hour edition, Myths, Lies, and Downright Stupidity. The broadcast coincides with the paperback release of John Stossel's book of the same name. The book, which is out May 1st, blows the lid off of some of the world's many myths and tall tales. 2020's John Stossel is with us now in New York. John, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Rob.
So, John, one of the myths that you talk about in your book, you've got an opinion piece up right now on abcnews.com about it, and it's gun control in light of the Virginia Tech massacre recently. Your piece argues that, correct me if I'm mischaracterizing it, but that stricter gun laws would not have necessarily prevented the massacre at Virginia Tech. Tell us about your position there.
That's accurate. I mean, watching the mainstream media, you would think it's just a matter of fixing it with gun control, and there are loopholes or lax gun laws that let the bad things happen. But there just isn't evidence that gun control is crime control. England banned guns 10 years ago after there was a school shooting, and they collected guns, confiscated hundreds of thousands of guns from people. Did crime go down? No. Crime went up. Shootings went up because the criminals just don't obey these laws. I think there's this impression in the media that I hear that the only people who oppose these laws are right-wing NRA gun nuts who just want to have dangerous things in their homes. But the fact is that the CDC, the National Academy of Sciences, have looked at gun laws, and they're yet to find that they stop crime because they cause an unintended consequence, which is that the criminals then know that the only people who have guns are they. And cons we talk to in jail say, look, we're not afraid of the police. We're more afraid that the guy we're going to rob might be packing. And
John,
that deters crime, too.
This is one of the issues that I think statistically you see stats used by both sides of this argument in ways that really make you stop and scratch your head what the truth really is. Because I read things, for instance, The Economist magazine, which is a British-based publication, after the Virginia Tech massacre came out with an article saying America has a tragic obsession with guns, and we here in England, fixed this some time ago, and it's had a positive impact, but yet they won't do this in America. And they threw some stats out there that I don't have in front of me that seem to indicate gun control was making a difference there. So, is it really the case that fewer guns or less availability of guns does really not have an impact on gun violence?
Well, I don't know what The Economist is saying, that clearly the European and the British reporters have a lot to complain about that they see in America. But I think The Economist is wrong if they're saying that the gun law passed there reduced gun crime. It didn't. Yeah. And I think the National Academy of Sciences and the CDC are pretty reliable. And they looked at a lot of these studies, and they just couldn't find any evidence of it. Plus, there's so much ignorance. I remember interviewing Al Sharpton, and I said to him, what would life be like if there were laws that allowed any adult to carry a hidden pistol? And I think if I say the same thing to most of my colleagues, they would have the same reaction, which is that, oh, my God, there'd be carnage in the streets. And yet that is the law in 40 states in America now. And there's no more gun crime in those states.
What about the specifics of the Virginia Tech situation, John? I mean, this troubled young man, Cho, he was not a hardened criminal. He wasn't the kind of guy who knew of illegal gun dealers, most likely, or, was connected to an underworld where guns were freely available. If guns hadn't been easily, legally obtainable by someone like him, do you think it's possible that he just may never have figured out a way to get a gun and maybe just wouldn't have done what he did, or would have done it in a way that was much, much less damaging?
It's certainly possible, and it would certainly be good if we could find a way to keep mentally unstable young men from getting guns. Yeah. But there's also the possibility that if the law hadn't been so strict, that another student would have had a gun and would have stopped him after he killed just a few people, which is what happened a few years back at the Appalachian Law School, which also had a law saying no guns in school, but two students had broken that rule, and they went to their cars, got their guns, and they stopped what might have been just as deadly a rampage.
Yeah, well, I love the book, and it really does.
All right, I'm going to stop it there for time, and the fact that the guy, obviously, as soon as Stossel brought up the fact that people, with guns were able to stop crimes, he switched the subject, because you can't have that information going out. You can't have people actually finding out that they could protect themselves. So the whole reason I wanted to do this special broadcast tonight was to put out like I said, I wanted to let everybody know about the thing with the police and go over that stuff and cover a few other issues and show you how, attack gun control from a different angle. But I really wanted to play the audio clips I did for you tonight, because now you have not just me saying things or another host saying things. You actually have people that survived massacres, and not just one or two people getting shot. You have, Susanna Hupp, where 26 people died, including her two parents. And, you heard her say the police told her they watched her mother get executed. Not like they were like hooping and hollering her about it, woohoo or anything like that. But they were on scene by the time she was killed, and they couldn't do anything to stop the guy. He still executed her. So things would have definitely changed. And I know the anti-gun nuts want to go out there and say, oh, blah, 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 you could have made it worse. Look, I already showed you an example last hour how a responsible gun owner, he was about to take this guy out with the AR. He had him in his sights, and he saw movement behind the guy and realized he didn't have a clear target. And he didn't disengage, but he changed his angle of approach. And the guy still knew he had a beat on him because he was in full view of the gunman. And the kid's being real humble about it. He doesn't want to do any interviews or anything like that. And I got to give him credit for that. He's not trying to be like, oh, I saved anybody or anything like that. He's being very humble, and I know there are people out there attacking him and saying that he should have shot. But again, unless you're in that person's shoes, don't judge a man by his. Don't judge a man until you've walked a mile in his moccasins. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for this special 4-hour broadcast. Amazing interview with Julia Davis in the first 2 hours, and some anti-gun control logic, truth, and education. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again actually tomorrow, because it is technically Thursday the 20th. I will see you all again on the 21st, broadcasting the last 2 hours from 10 to midnight on the 21st. Spend the last 2 hours of the end of the age. Come hang out with me.